Imagine you are trapped. You are surrounded by Swedish pine, the scent of cinnamon rolls, and a path that dictates your every step. You only came for a bookshelf, but your cart is now overflowing with napkins, a bamboo plant, and a 30-pack of tea lights. You have been caught in the most sophisticated psychological snare in retail history. This is not a furniture store. It is a 300,000-square-foot behavioral laboratory designed to dismantle your logic and replace it with a singular primal urge to consume. In the mid-1950s, Ingvar Kamprad was a man under siege. The Swedish furniture cartel had declared war on his mail-order business. They were terrified of his low prices and pressured suppliers to boycott him. Kamprad was barred from furniture fairs. He was an outcast in his own industry. Most entrepreneurs would have folded. Instead, Kamprad pivoted to an act of industrial defiance. He stopped trying to bring furniture to the people and forced the people to come to the furniture. He didn't just build a store, he engineered a gauntlet. The foundation of the IKEA empire rests on a psychological phenomenon known as the Gruen Effect. Named after architect Victor Gruen, it describes the moment a consumer enters a space so intentionally overwhelming that their original shopping intent evaporates. Their internal map fails. Their sense of time dilates. The long natural path of an IKEA store is a physical manifestation of this mental hijack. Unlike a traditional department store with a central hub, IKEA utilizes a one-way layout. You are forced to see everything. By the time you reach the sofas, you have already walked through 20 simulated lives. This layout utilizes a tactic called the decompression zone. As you enter, you are greeted by high ceilings, a restaurant, and a supervised play area. IKEA isn't just selling chairs, they are removing every biological barrier to a long-duration stay. They feed you so you aren't hungry. They watch your children so you aren't distracted. They settle your nervous system so they can begin the process of transferal. This is the weaponization of the first-mover advantage in the physical world. By controlling your physical movement, they control your cognitive load. As you navigate the maze, you encounter the Bulla Bulla technique. These are the giant bins overflowing with cheap items, pillows, kitchen gadgets, and those ubiquitous tea lights. These are loss leaders, products sold at or below cost to stimulate other, more profitable sales. The sheer volume of the bins creates an illusion of scarcity and immense value. Your brain interprets the mountain of goods as a bargain that cannot be passed up. You throw them into the cart because the sunk cost of your journey has already begun. You've walked half a mile. You need a reward for your labor. This labor is the second pillar of the IKEA war machine, the IKEA Effect. Behavioral economists found that humans value objects more highly if they played a role in creating them. By forcing you to serve as your own warehouse picker and assembly line worker, IKEA isn't just saving on labor costs through vertical integration. They are tricking your brain into a deep emotional attachment to the product. When you struggle for 3 hours to tighten an Allen key, you aren't just building a dresser, you are investing your ego into the particle board. You cannot hate the dresser, because to do so would be to admit your own failure. But the ascent to global dominance required more than just psychology. It required a brutalist approach to logistics. Kamprad realized that shipping air was the greatest tax on a business. The invention of the flat pack was a tactical strike against the physics of retail. By dismantling the furniture, IKEA dismantled the competition's overhead. They could fit 10 times the inventory in a single shipping container compared to traditional retailers. They transformed the customer into a last-mile delivery service. This wasn't just efficiency, it was a logistical blitzkrieg that allowed them to colonize global markets while competitors were still paying to store air in expensive warehouses. As the brand scaled, it weaponized price engineering. Most companies design a product and then calculate the price. IKEA does the opposite. They pick a price point, the impossible price, and then challenge their engineers to build a product that fits it. They will strip away the back of a wardrobe or use honeycomb paper filling inside a table leg to hit that number. This is destructive innovation. They make the competition's price points look like an act of theft, even if the IKEA product has a shorter life cycle. Today, the maze is evolving. The plunge into the digital age presents a unique threat. How do you maintain the Gruen Effect when the customer is on a smartphone? Digital shopping is too efficient. It allows for search and exit, the very thing the physical maze was designed to kill. To counter this, IKEA is pivoting into augmented reality and smaller city center hubs. They are trying to digitize the psychological friction that made them billionaires. They are betting that even in a world of instant gratification, the human brain still craves the reward of the hunt. The story of the IKEA Maze is the ultimate lesson in choice architecture. It proves that the environment in which a decision is made is more powerful than the decision itself. If you control the path, you control the person. In business, as in life, the greatest advantage does not go to the one with the best product, but to the one who best understands the irrationality of the human mind. The maze is not designed for you to find what you want. It is designed for you to discover who IKEA wants you to be.